Every time you eat, your body undergoes a complex chemical reaction. But for many, the food on our plates quietly sets off a systemic response. It triggers an invisible, continuous state of biological stress that you can't feel. There's no sharp pain, no fever, and no immediate signs of illness. Calming this internal state requires a shift in how we build a plate. By making specific dietary swaps, we can protect cells from damage and extend our healthy lifespan. This chart compares two different immune responses. The blue line is acute inflammation, a sharp, necessary spike that heals a cut, then returns to zero. The red line is chronic inflammation, a jagged, persistent baseline forcing your body on constant alert. This level of silent but persistent damage is linked to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, and even cognitive decline. It makes our daily grocery choices a critical intervention for long-term health. Over the last few decades, researchers recognized a glaring pattern in public health. Populations consuming diets heavily reliant on packaged, ultra-processed goods consistently exhibit elevated inflammatory markers in their blood work. As global diets shifted toward modern convenience and fast food, the baseline state of biological stress in the general population increased. We traded nutritional complexity for refined ingredients that the body often treats as a threat. In contrast, populations whose diets center on whole, colorful plants and fresh produce consistently exhibit significantly lower inflammation and lower rates of chronic disease. What is it about our modern diet that keeps the immune response in the on position? And what are the specific mechanisms in whole foods that help resolve it? The primary drivers of systemic inflammation in the Western diet are refined carbohydrates, trans fats, and ultra-processed additives. When consumed, these foods cause erratic blood sugar spikes and postprandial oxidative stress. Sugar molecules and artificial fats bombard the cell membrane, leading to an overproduction of reactive oxygen species. This cellular stress activates the NF-κB transcription factor. This protein acts as the master regulator of the inflammatory response, coordinating the genes that initiate a systemic defense. Once the pathway is activated, the cell releases pro-inflammatory cytokines like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6 into the bloodstream, signaling the immune system to remain on low-level alert. While many reach for sugar-free alternatives to avoid these spikes, artificial sweeteners like sucralose and erythritol introduce different risks. Animal studies suggest these compounds can disrupt the integrity of the gut microbiome and the intestinal barrier. This allows harmful endotoxins to leak through into the bloodstream, which may elevate cardiovascular risk and maintain a state of chronic inflammation. Choosing sugar-free options doesn't necessarily prevent an inflammatory response. These processed additives can keep the immune system in a state of perpetual combat. To counter this, your body requires antioxidants and polyphenols. These protective compounds are found in dense concentrations in brightly colored fruits, leafy greens, and spices. Antioxidants work by donating electrons to stabilize volatile free radicals. This process neutralizes the radicals before they can cause further oxidative damage to your DNA and cell membranes. Balancing our intake of fatty acids is equally important. While the modern diet provides an excess of pro-inflammatory omega-6s, we can shift the balance by eating more omega-3s, found in fatty fish, walnuts, and extra virgin olive oil. Omega-3 fatty acids directly reduce the production of inflammatory proteins, which can help ease joint pain and improve cardiovascular health. The final line of defense is dietary fiber. Found in whole grains and legumes, fiber plays a critical role in maintaining the gut microbiome. Beneficial gut bacteria convert this fiber into short-chain fatty acids, which create an impenetrable shield along the intestinal lining. This prevents inflammatory endotoxins from entering the blood, keeping the immune system calm. Whole foods provide the bioactive compounds your body needs to repair cellular damage and restore immune order. You may have heard that nightshade vegetables, like tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes, are hidden triggers for arthritis and joint pain. Scientific evidence does not support this claim. In fact, these vegetables are rich in vitamin C and antioxidants like lycopene and capsaicin, shown to reduce inflammatory markers in the body. The driver of chronic inflammation is rarely a single category of vegetable, but rather the cumulative effect of a highly processed lifestyle. Reducing systemic inflammation is not an overnight fix. It is a biological investment that yields measurable results over weeks and months of consistency. As C-reactive protein levels drop, the physical benefits become apparent. Individuals often report reduced joint stiffness, improved metabolic health, and the elimination of persistent brain fog. This increased biological efficiency is why athletes prioritize anti-inflammatory foods. Research indicates that specific nutrients, like those in berries and fatty fish, can reduce post-exercise muscle soreness by up to 25%. An anti-inflammatory eating pattern improves the body's baseline capacity for repair and its ability to handle physical stress. Diet is the foundation, but it works as part of a larger ecosystem. You cannot compensate for a lack of quality sleep or a completely sedentary lifestyle through food alone. Proper hydration also matters. Contaminants in water, such as lead or arsenic, can independently trigger inflammatory responses in the body. Success doesn't require complex rules or exotic superfoods. It is about crowding out highly processed triggers with a variety of colorful, whole foods. By changing what you put on your plate, you allow your immune system to shift from a state of constant defense to one of active repair and long-term protection. We often hear the phrase, "a calorie is a calorie," the idea that our bodies are simple engines, burning whatever fuel we put in. But human digestion functions as a highly sensitive communication system. Once food hits your gut, it acts as a set of chemical instructions, telling your cells and your immune system exactly how to behave. Over the last century, our food supply underwent a massive shift. We traded whole ingredients for aisles of heavily packaged artificial convenience foods. In doing so, we radically altered the messages we send to our bodies on a daily basis. Every bite of food you take is a direct command. It either instructs your immune system to prepare for war, or it signals your cells to begin repairs. When you sprain an ankle or get a paper cut, your immune system reacts with acute inflammation. It's a fast, necessary rush of blood and white blood cells that swells up the area to heal the immediate damage and then shuts off. But in chronic systemic inflammation, the immune system gets stuck on a high alert setting. It stays locked in a state of low-grade tension, constantly patrolling the bloodstream for an enemy that isn't there. This biological state is quantifiable. Doctors measure it by tracking C-reactive protein, or CRP, an innate recognition protein that serves as a sensitive marker of systemic inflammation. Over time, this ceaseless immune activity begins to attack healthy tissue. This slow, quiet damage forms the biological foundation for almost every modern chronic disease we face today. The primary instigators of this biological panic are the staples of the standard Western diet: ultra-processed foods, heavily refined carbohydrates, and artificial saturated fats. These items cause rapid blood sugar spikes and generate reactive oxygen species, unstable molecules known as free radicals, that damage healthy cells. This stress breaks apart the tight junctions of the intestinal wall, allowing harmful bacterial endotoxins to leak directly into the bloodstream. Once inside, they activate the NF-κB pathway. Alarmed cells immediately respond by pumping out a massive wave of pro-inflammatory cytokines, flooding the system. Your body biologically misinterprets these processed calories as a bacterial infection. You haven't caught a bug, but your diet has trapped your immune system in a state of perpetual panic. To reverse this process, we look to the traditional Mediterranean diet, an eating pattern built around raw, unrefined ingredients that act as direct biological countermeasures. Brightly colored vegetables and extra virgin olive oil deliver polyphenols and antioxidants. These compounds hunt down and neutralize free radicals, stopping cellular damage before it spreads. Omega-3 fatty acids act as blockers, physically intercepting the inflammatory cytokines to shut down the alarm. Meanwhile, dense dietary fiber nourishes your beneficial flora. These bacteria multiply and produce short-chain fatty acids that seal the intestinal walls back up, completely stopping the leak of endotoxins. An anti-inflammatory diet is a strategy of chemical synergy. It uses nutrient-dense foods to crowd out pro-inflammatory triggers, supporting the body's natural state of repair. When low-grade inflammatory signals persist for decades, they accelerate the biological aging process. Researchers call this phenomenon inflammaging. This persistent cellular wear and tear drives the progression of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, and chronic joint damage. We often treat these conditions as the inevitable wear and tear of getting older. In reality, they are often the cumulative result of a body that has spent years in a prolonged inflammatory state. Healthy aging is about active management. It requires consistently lowering your systemic inflammatory burden today to protect your organs and tissues for the future. You cannot undo years of immune panic with a single healthy meal. Blood markers like CRP typically take 6 to 12 weeks of consistent choices to show a significant, measurable decline. Nutrition also operates within a broader wellness ecosystem. Hydration, quality sleep, and regular physical movement are all required to keep stress hormones like cortisol in check. Your body is constantly listening to the biological information you feed it. Every meal is a set of instructions. Every time you sit down to eat, you have a choice. You possess the power to stop feeding the fire and start fueling the repair. When you get a paper cut or twist an ankle, your immune system mounts a highly coordinated defense. White blood cells and inflammatory proteins rush to the site to heal the tissue and fight infection. It is a precise, temporary response. But chronic inflammation is an alarm bell that gets stuck in the on position. Instead of targeting a single injury, this low-grade immune response operates system-wide, lingering for months or even years. Over time, that constant state of alert damages healthy cells. Clinical data links this persistent inflammation directly to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and cognitive decline. The wellness industry often presents a highly marketable solution to this problem, popping a concentrated turmeric supplement or mixing an expensive superfood powder into your morning routine. The immune system does not operate in a vacuum. If a daily routine is heavily packed with processed ingredients, tossing a single antioxidant pill into the mix will not overpower the sheer volume of stress placed on the body's digestive and metabolic systems. Scientific consensus shows that our inflammatory markers are dictated by our overall dietary pattern. The cumulative effect of what we eat day after day dictates whether our immune system rests or goes on the offensive. Lowering your long-term risk of disease requires changing the daily chemical signals you send your cells, rather than treating the resulting inflammation like a symptom that can be cured with a quick fix. The standard Western diet is heavy in ultra-processed foods, added sugars, and refined starches. Eating this way acts as a continuous, provocative trigger to our biology. These ingredients degrade the physical lining of the gut. When that barrier weakens, it allows toxins to leak into the bloodstream, directly forcing the immune system to raise the body's overall inflammatory burden. Look at this animated graph plotting blood sugar levels after a typical low-fiber meal. Without intact fiber to slow down digestion, glucose hits the bloodstream all at once, creating severe spikes and rapid crashes. To manage that volatile glucose, the pancreas floods the system with a massive surge of insulin. This rapid hormonal response throws the body into a state of acute metabolic stress. That insulin stress causes immune cells to release pro-inflammatory proteins, which then interfere with the body's ability to process insulin. It creates a continuous loop. Inflammation worsens insulin resistance, and insulin resistance fuels further inflammation. Fiber-rich whole foods break this cycle. Complex carbohydrates like legumes, oats, and vegetables act as a physical brake in the digestive tract. They pace the release of energy, keeping blood sugar completely stable and controlling appetite. Regulating your immune system requires using dietary fiber to physically stabilize your metabolic engine. You might have encountered the popular myth of the alkaline diet, which claims that certain foods reduce inflammation by directly altering your blood's pH. Your lungs and kidneys tightly regulate your blood pH, regardless of your lunch order. What actually happens is that a diet lacking in potassium-rich plants forces the body to work much harder to maintain that baseline balance. This creates a high dietary acid load, a condition clinically linked to poor metabolic health and elevated inflammatory markers. The solution relies on simple whole food swaps. You swap sugary breakfast cereals for oats and berries, or replace processed deli meats with salmon and lentils. The deep, vibrant colors in these plant swaps are functional chemical signals. The dark blue of a blackberry comes from compounds called anthocyanins, and the bright orange of a sweet potato comes from carotenoids. These colorful plant compounds directly support the body's internal antioxidant defenses. They neutralize the free radicals that cause cellular damage and drive oxidative stress. We can map these ingredients on a target chart based on clinical evidence. Here in the Tier 1 center, we find the foods with the strongest data for fighting inflammation: extra virgin olive oil, fatty fish, leafy greens, and legumes. Moving out to the support ring, we find Tier 2 foods. Items like avocados, dark chocolate, and fermented dairy provide excellent complementary fats and polyphenols to round out a healthy pattern. Human biology relies on synergy. Eating a bowl of spinach will not neutralize a diet built on ultra-processed food. These foods only work when integrated as a cohesive defense system. Building that cohesive defense system doesn't require extreme restriction or adopting a fad diet. You can shift your dietary pattern using a structured 5-step transition plan. Step 1. Remove the biggest inflammatory drivers first. Cut out sugary drinks, processed meats, and refined grain snacks that keep your immune system on high alert. Step 2. Add color to your plate at least twice a day. Ensure that berries, dark leafy greens, or citrus fruits are consistently present in your meals. Steps 3 and 4 are about stabilizing your metabolic layer. Upgrade your cooking fats to extra virgin olive oil and gradually increase your fiber intake with beans, seeds, and oats. Step 5. Focus on building your meals around minimally processed foods. Consistency over months and years matters far more than achieving absolute dietary perfection on any single random Tuesday. Following this evidence-based approach frees you from the burden of counting macros or tracking down exotic, expensive supplements. By shifting your daily eating pattern, you stop stoking the systemic fire. You provide your body with the exact physiological tools it needs to repair tissue, protect your organs, and thrive over the long term. Wake up exhausted despite getting a full 8 hours of sleep? Notice your joints taking longer to loosen up in the morning? A persistent mental fog? Or minor cuts that seem to linger for weeks? These aren't inevitable symptoms of biological aging. They are the physical signs of an invisible fire burning inside your body. Normally, inflammation is your body's rapid response repair system. If you scrape your knee, your immune system dispatches cells to swarm the area, clear out debris, and seal the wound. Once the job is done, the alarm shuts off. The problem starts when that off switch breaks. Your immune system stays locked in a state of high alert, continually releasing defensive chemicals into your bloodstream when there is no actual injury to fight. This creates a condition researchers call inflammaging, a chronic, low-grade biological panic. Instead of healing you, these restless immune cells begin slowly degrading your healthy tissues. You cannot see this response the way you see a swollen ankle. It operates quietly below the surface, simmering for months or even decades. Over time, roaming inflammatory proteins attack joint tissues, causing rheumatoid arthritis. They irritate coronary arteries, driving plaque buildup and heart disease. When this chemical agitation reaches the brain, it disrupts neural pathways, accelerating cognitive decline and Alzheimer's risk. If human biology evolved to heal itself, something specific must be jamming that alarm in the on position. Resolving this biological threat requires us to look at the daily inputs we are feeding our bodies, the exact materials keeping our immune system trapped in a state of panic. The primary suspect driving this immune misfire is the modern Western diet. The shift began in the mid-20th century when ultra-processed convenience meals first entered the family kitchen, introducing entirely new chemical irritants into human digestion. Drive-ins normalized deep-fried foods cooked in highly refined seed oils, paired with massive servings of stripped, refined carbohydrates. Today, our grocery aisles are packed with items stripped of their natural fiber and loaded with added sugars to artificially extend their shelf life. Ingesting trans fats and refined sugars causes sharp spikes in pro-inflammatory cytokines, specifically CRP and IL-6. These compounds alter your digestive bacteria and irritate the gut lining. Your immune system then treats these processed inputs as hostile pathogens. We are continually feeding our bodies biological fuel that forces the immune system to fight our own lunch. but we can reverse this process by introducing dietary inputs that actively cool the system down. Berries and dark leafy greens contain compounds called polyphenols. These act as antioxidants, circulating through the bloodstream and chemically neutralizing the volatile free radicals that cause cellular damage. At the same time, omega-3 fatty acids actively intercept and block the chemical pathways that trigger joint pain and swelling. One of the most potent bioavailable sources of these omega-3s is fatty cold water fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel. These nutrients function as biological shields, disarming the chemical triggers and telling your immune system it is safe to power down. Extinguishing this systemic fire does not demand a punishing juice cleanse, severe calorie restriction, or a miserable starvation diet. You do not need to hunt down expensive, exotic superfoods. The most effective protective compounds sit right in your local grocery store's produce aisle. Dietitians recommend a strategy called crowding out. Instead of fixating on what you have to cut, you simply fill your plate with so many colorful vegetables, beans, and healthy fats that the processed items are naturally pushed off the menu. Decades of clinical data back this up. The Mediterranean diet consistently lowers inflammatory markers just by prioritizing whole grains, legumes, and olive oil. This approach turns eating back into a communal, deeply enjoyable experience, rather than a lonely medical intervention. It is entirely about consistency through smarter daily swaps. Perfectionism is unnecessary. The hidden fire inside you does not have to burn forever. By simply changing what we put on our plates, we can turn off the biological alarm and age healthily from the inside out.